muchachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time, even if one of them is all the way across the world.
Kayfabe.
I'm Petey Rave. And I'm blinded by the light, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. And here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got David.
I am not traveling internationally, everyone. I'm just here because it's my album this week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've got Drew.
I'm the one. I'm traveling internationally. I'm currently in Finland. So I'm hanging out.
Yep. Petey is in Miami, the 305, and Drew is gallivanting across the globe.
To see, but I'm in the bright sunny skies of Miami, Florida. Yeah, we're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about an album. We're talking about an album that has been provided by David. David, what have you brought for us this week?
PD, Record Breakers fans and listeners, I was inspired by the great Dara Star Tucker, who everyone should follow everywhere. I was inspired to pick an album by a well-known group. So picking a album from this group in particular was a little bit of a challenge because they've had such a long career and have so many hits. It was hard to pick something from their catalog that was not necessarily a big smash hit. This one alone has, I think, 4 songs that I distinctly remember being played on the radio regularly in my childhood. So yeah. In the case of Dara Star Tucker, she put out a couple of TikToks about her friends in a workplace that just so happened to not necessarily be familiar with this group for whatever reason, discovered them. The group is Earth, Wind, and Fire, and introduced Dara to other songs besides September and Boogie Wonderland. Now, of course, Dara, you, the fair listeners, Petey and Drew, and yours truly, we're all quite familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire. They're one of the greatest soul funk groups of all time. One of the greatest music ensembles to ever exist, in my opinion. It is a massive red flag if you do not like Earth, Wind, and Fire. At least something from them. For me personally, if you can't pull something that you enjoy from Earth, Wind, and Fire, that's a red flag. And I decided to go with their album, That's the Way of the World.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What was your mindset coming into this album? What were your thoughts?
I was excited. My mindset was, oh hey, I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. I've seen various permutations of this band, considering some of them are no longer with us throughout the years. In fact, I believe I brought them up once before, many moons ago, when I was but one white guy in a group on the podcast. Believe one of them is now back in Pennsylvania, oddly enough.
Yeah.
But it was an album I was excited to go in on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was excited to hop into some Earth, Wind, and Fire. I think it's one of those things where I know Earth, Wind, and Fire, but even like I don't appreciate how much I know and love Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I don't get a chance to appreciate and sit down and listen to some great funky soul music. And I was I was hyped. I was hyped. Um, David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as Earth, Wind, and Fire, exactly as you expect them. Although a couple of tracks here and there, they find ways to experiment and expand their sound a little bit. And on this album, they do some really interesting things with their sound. There's some Fender Rhodes, there's some Mini Moog, there's an instrumental. There's actually a couple of instrumentals. There's some African drumming. There's a lot here, but it is all distinctly Earth, Wind, and Fire. You hear the brass sections. You hear Maurice White. You hear the incomparable Philip Bailey and his falsetto. It is undeniably Earth, Wind, and Fire, but it is also Earth, Wind, and Fire getting a little experimental. And that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, one, Earth, Wind, and Fire is a band. I think you can tell, like David alluded to, in why he decided to bring them up. You can tell a lot about a person, whether they know just September or not from Earth, Wind, and Fire. You can tell a lot of things about a person, I think. And that's the thing. Earth, Wind, and Fire is one of those bands that has been critically acclaimed and put over and like just they're one of the few bands that were doing the funk disco thing in the funk disco era that still now command like a lot of respect from people, and it comes from the stuff you see here. When I brought them in, I brought in the 11th album, Raise, from 81, which is a little bit different. They started experiment, like you get sort of that early 80s sound, especially when you think about things like Let's Groove, and I've had enough off of that album. This album is definitely something where the earlier stuff was very much like David alluded to in that like mold, and this sort of starts them. You know what? We've gotten people noticing who we are and respecting us. Let's push a little bit. You have more of Maurice's love of kalimba uh, on tracks. You have these instrumentals, like David was saying. Um, and the thing about this that I loved was that the tracks, if you just listen to them one, two, three, four, like it sort of goes like you have the dance track, you have the baby making ballad, you have the dance track, you have the baby making ballad, and it kind of goes that way through most of the record, which I think is really, really cool.
I did not take it that way at all.
Yeah.
That's just not how I interpreted it. But all right. That's a new one though. I like it.
But the other thing too is what I think makes Earth, Wind, and Fire a cut above a lot of their contemporaries was how tight everything is. You have so much instrumentation that if you do not have like a solid like core and a solid foundation to all of it, it starts to fall apart. And you have one of the leaders of this band in Maurice White that is also like not only having such a great command of melody and vocal melody, but he's also a percussionist. So he has that same level of like being able to figure it out on the rhythm side of things, which you don't always get with these types of bands, and I think is really what makes them just. There's never been a point where I've listened to an Earth, Wind, and Fire song and been like, they kind of phoned it in on that one. Just doesn't happen.
No. For me,
Absolutely not.
What I've said for the longest time is what sets Earth, Wind, and Fire above other contemporaries is their technical brilliance. Like, yeah, they're a soul, they're a funk, they're an R&B band and all of that. But when you really dive in and you really hear it on this album, they are playing a lot of stuff, and they are playing really, really well. To call it tight doesn't even do it justice.
No, you're right.
This is, in so many ways, just brilliant music from front to back on so many levels. Like the playing, the production, the sonic sound, everything from top to bottom is aces.
Yeah, I think it is musically so fun and skillful. It is rhythmic. It is melodic. The harmonies are just so wonderful. All the like all the layers to everything are fantastic. And the other thing that that we didn't bring up was the fact that this is actually technically a soundtrack to a movie that flopped, uh, but it's technically a soundtrack to a movie of the same name. And
that happened a lot in those days, didn't it?
Yeah. And there are aspects of this album where you can actually kind of like, and we'll get into this in a sec, but that you can, if you look at a track from the same, so from like the perspective of like a movie soundtrack, you're like, that makes perfect sense. Even though this is just a great song, just as a song, but it also they work great as like setting the stage for moments in a movie, more like in the story, um, especially like in the 70s, like the 70s movie in particular. And so they have like those little like cinematic qualities, but they're just engaging in a really great way. Like the everything that Drew said from like a actual musical standpoint absolutely applies, and it is it is fantastically funky in a really great way, and it is timeless, but also a nice little like fun dip into like, hey, that's 70s, you dig. But you have those moments. But it is,
which we will talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. It just has a lot of those like little moments, and then it just has a great variety and a great like takes you on a nice little like journey into like Drew said, like going into like those like more danceable tracks, and then going into like more of the ballads, more like the slow jams, and it fits well. Yeah, let's talk about some of the key tracks on this album. David, what would be some of the key tracks to zero in on?
Oh man. Okay, the album opens with the legendary Shining Star. And yeah, enough said. This is one of those songs where I feel like this is probably the second Earth, Wind, and Fire song people probably know. It's usually the second or the third. And it's one where I would like to say to people, yes, Earth, Wind, and Fire has more than one song, I promise you. What I especially love of the version that is on streaming platforms is that it is the 2009 remaster, and you really hear the bass up in the mix on this entire album, and it is beautiful. There's a Fender Rhodes on this song that is just fantastic. And I'm finally going to say, for as much as I've been bitching,
lesser known brother,
as much as I've been bitching and complaining and moaning about songs being too short on this podcast, this song is 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and it is exactly as long as it needs to. It's perfect, no notes. The second track, the title track, I realize this is just another one of Earth, Wind, and Fire's songs that I've heard literally my entire life. The chorus and the guitar solo are just bliss. Happy feeling. Happy feeling. Drew, I wrote here in this one. Drew, you should pick up your bass for this song. I want you to pick up your bass for that song. Happy feeling. That's
Give me
the one.
tab. Give me tab.
Okay. I'll look into it. Reasons. Another one that was on the radio and in my ear as a child. Africano, the instrumental track. I'm going to say something really wild, gentlemen, about this track. I believe that in this song, you hear the embryonic stem cells that eventually grow and become Thank You Scientist in Africano. And last but not least, See the Light. This is why I picked this album. The synths, the drum solos, the percussion work, absolutely beautiful. And Yearnin' Learnin', track 5, where Mr. White talks to us directly, breaks the fourth wall, and talks to the listener specifically. And on one hand, it's very 70s, but at the same time, it's kind of timeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. What would be some of the key tracks for you?
For me, one, like Shining Star, first track, lead single, it's strong. It is a funky dance track. And then going into the second track being a title track, again, the other thing that I always harp on, if you have a title track, like if your album is named after a song on the album, like it better be really strong. And oh man, muted horns, like oh, so good. It just hits so well. And then I wanted to highlight Africano, the like sort of groovy soundscapey beginning, the intricate moving like instrumental like instrumentation, I guess is the word I'm looking for, of the whole thing. Just absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny you talk about the 2-minute 50-second of Shining Star being exactly what they needed. It made me think in that moment when you said it. And if people know me, like probably the billion times you've heard me reference Almost Famous, it's like probably a billion times you hear me reference Gilmore Girls. Almost Famous. The radio interview, Bill Seymour Hoffman's Lester Bangs performing is there's a interview scene where he talks about the letter by the box tops. And there's I forget how long it is, but it's like a minute and a half or like less than a couple minutes. And he says like it takes such and such minutes for the box tops to accomplish what it takes Jethro Tull 2 hours to not accomplish. Now, no, this is me quoting the movie, not exactly talking about Jethro Tull or the box tops, but I feel like that encapsulates the idea of like, it takes Earth, Wind, and Fire 2 minutes and 50 seconds to accomplish what so many bands can spend like 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes not. But yeah, the title track is one of those like you could. I don't know about other people. I looked at the title and I didn't automatically assume I've heard this song, and then I heard it and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard this song a million times. So it's like, and it's like amazing song. It's amazing, kind of like paired with Shining Star encapsulation of like this album in a really great way. All About Love is just he's just talking to you. Let me talk to you.
Rap with you, as he said.
Let me rap with you. And it was cool when he said it. Not like he did. It didn't sound like a preacher sitting on his sitting on his chair backwards, trying to rap with you about Jesus. No, he was actually genuinely cool when he said that, and it was just a.
You
It
know
was. It was.
you know who else is all about the earth, the wind, and the fire? As a preacher might say.
Mhm. Um, it's just a beautiful, beautiful track. Uh, and then reasons, the reasons that we're here. It is the one of those quintessential Earth, Wind, and Fire tracks, and that the those falsettos, those high tones, not even falsettos, those high tones, those high notes, is just amazing. And then Africano is just like you touching into the like the cousin sounds of sounds that obviously that have lived in where around I am, my neck of the woods, but from the same sources, obviously. Um, you get a lot of the cousin sounds to like Afro Latino sounds, and like a lot of that great just rhythmic variety, a lot of that those great like percussions, a lot of that great it's just and also this is the this is this was one of those, this is like that quintessential track that this makes perfect sense if you think of it as like a movie soundtrack. This is like just a movie soundtrack track, but even on its own, it still stands on its own. Um, but yeah, let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
As a whole, I said it earlier, I don't think Earth, Wind, and Fire misses. I could have picked any other three songs and they would have been just as good. Like, there is not many bands that are as consistently both critically acclaimed and worthy of the praise, I think, as Earth, Wind, and Fire. They've been doing it for a while and they're always good. It's always great. Like, I don't know what else to say. If you've been living under a rock, and September is the song and you haven't heard any others, you're unsure, do yourself a huge favor and seek this out.
Also, how did you miss Earth, Wind, and Fire? It's like missing Jesus.
Yeah. It is Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's fucking Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like we said when we did Rush, it's like it's fucking Rush. It's like it's fucking Earth, Wind, and Fire. It is just a classic album. It is a fantastic album. It's a well made, well performed, uh, loosely tight album. like uh, it is tight in its performance, but loose in its sentimentality of like just having fun. It is
Three-dimensional battle gear,
cool.
loose and tight at the same time.
Mm-hmm. It is cool, hip, and with it, and in a lot of really great ways. There's not much else to say. David, what would be your conclusion on this album?
This album is terrific. The musicianship is second to none. The hooks are undeniable. The production is sublime. It's a 5-star album, and I'm not going to break the scale, but it's a 5-star album. Yeah. There are even deep down, burrowed in the underbelly, some, dare I say, proggy moments on this album. But yes, progressive soul was a thing for a very brief pocket in time. Progressive soul was a thing. And this album is well worth your time. And at 38 minutes, it will feel like just before we recorded, I listened to this album on a walk today after work. and it was simultaneously the perfect length while also making me want more. 5-star album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Earth, Wind, and Fire's That's the Way the World Is. That's the way of the world. That's the way of the world.
That's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Different song.
Now we get to the main event of the evening.
Oh,
The moment we've all been waiting for. Our haiku reviews. As people join me in the lobby, we're getting ready to go to class.
Time to go home. Take it home.
Yeah. We get to our haiku reviews. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. Drew, what is your haiku?
Oh, shoot. I should bring that up. I thought you were going to go to somebody else. Well-regarded band, even with all the acclaim, not overrated.
Mm-hmm. My haiku, classic record from soul, funk, and disco icons. You dig? Have mercy. And last but not least, David, what is your haiku?
A shining album. 70s soul with some quirks. Legends in their prime.
Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Earth, Wind, Fire's That's the Way of the World. And that's the way of this podcast. You can find it on our Spotify playlist and on our YouTube playlist, along with all of our past episodes and past albums. So you can play Record Break It's a Home Game, do your due diligence, and your due diligence. On those playlists will be next week's record, and it's going to be provided by Drew. Oddly enough, this wasn't not provided by Drew, but this next one will be. Drew, what have you got for next?
Spoiler alert, everybody! My next album will be from the Get Up Kids.
Yeah, I'd love to see which Get Up Kids record you would pick. No, but we're gonna keep it in the funk realm, and I'm gonna bring on a band because I need these two gentlemen to give me a good time, specifically because the world is what it is. We can discuss the finer points of P-Thug and Dave One's album Adult Contemporary. The duo is known as Chromeo.
Back to Chromeo again.
Chromeo.
All right.
Yeah, we're getting our little Chromeo on. Yeah. That's it. Those are our thoughts on them. That's it.
Oh, it looks like they're on tour right now, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This world definitely needs two people of their background saying, yo, don't be assholes. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's next week. And this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Recordbreakers.fun. You can find us everywhere you find podcasts, or at least everywhere. Who knows where you can find podcasts nowadays? I'm not even going to go through the list, but go find us. We're Record Breakers. If anything, you can always just grab the feed from the website at recordbreakers.com or rebelli.net. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Be sure to check out Rebelli TV on YouTube and on Twitch. Watch us live on Twitch, where you can watch us do these shows. Right now, it's going to be Record Breakers in GM mode, and in a couple of weeks, we're going to be back to Through the Tones. Yeah, check out all the things, like, share, subscribe, do it all. Until next time.
Say it in Korean, Petey.
Annyeong. Fighting.
Toodaloo.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.